Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for that. Just make sure that you can hear me because this
I
is
can hear you.
definitely fantastic. We do have some questions for you that people have come through, or at least it's come through from people. The first one isn't really a question, it's just a statement. It must be amazing to work at Renderheads. There's a lot of great work model, great business model. It's a lot of people saying that it must be great to work at a company that cares for their employees and cares about the longer term strategy as opposed to just getting this game out as quickly as possible.
Um, I mean, I've come from some pretty toxic and some pretty shitty work environments. So yes, it is very nice to work at Beds.
Okay, so let's get to yeah. Let me
Yeah,
hit you with
no,
that
it
one.
is, and like, I'd like to think that I'd like to think that we are a good place to work for. I mean, and it is. It's something we hold really important to ourselves, and it does. It really does inform a lot of the decisions that we make. You know, we really do consider what is best for our employees, not necessarily what's best for everybody. There's stuff that I could give example for that unfortunately I'm not allowed to. I've been in breach of all sorts of security, but like it's an amazing place to work for. And when we scale up our hiring, you know, we're happy to accept CVs.
So we don't have a lot of time for a lot more questions. So I'm going to get to the ones that I see a lot of people are keen to hear for. Regarding the strategy of working only with strategic partners, I'm assuming that you can't really talk about it because of NDAs and or at least the specifics because of NDAs. The question is, how do you manage to forge those partnerships, and how do you generally identify and then market yourselves to such potential partners?
Okay, so I mean, the key thing is identifying the marketing yourself to them and forging a relationship with them is actually relatively easy. You know, we've got work that we can rely on. We're obviously doing it within specific verticals. We're very good at what we do. So it's not a problem selling ourselves, really. And because you can approach something, you can say, hey, we're doing this cool thing. Look at the amazing stuff that we've built. And people are like, yeah, I want you to do that for me. The real challenge is identifying who do you work with. And the best way that we've kind of done to do that is we go back to those three core pillars that we've got. Like, do their strategic pillars align with ours? Because if they don't, if they treat their employees like crap, we don't want to work with them, right? If they don't believe in specialization and the benefits that gives their company and why we should be allowed to do the same leverage, we don't want to work with them. Right, so it goes back to those core principles. That's the litmus test, and then there's the vibe. I think Dimple called it yesterday. She called it the vibe check. Like, could we actually work with them? Often we'll undertake a small project to kind of just see if it works, see if it gels, before we kind of onboard up. But that's generally the process. That's like, how do they rate against how we rate ourselves as a business, and can we align in that way?
I definitely get a sense from the way you answer that you're not approaching these partnerships out of desperation. You're not desperately trying to get them to be your partners. You're offering them a valuable partnership, and you both sides need to be happy and excited about that happening. I think from the question, it kind of feels like, how do we find these partnerships? We need people so desperate to have their projects made, but you do need to come in there knowing that you have value as well.
Yeah, but remember, like, this is a 5-year journey. Like, yes, we're in that position now because of the decisions that we've made, right? It's because we haven't, look, I mean, we have seen, like, at the beginning of the year, we were only 8 people. So we've nearly doubled our workforce this year. But it's because we were in the position that we could do it. And we didn't do that sooner, even though we potentially could have, to take on new projects. So it's about, and this is where the strategy comes in, right? Is that, yes, it's difficult to find these people, but you need to make sure that you haven't built up your company to such a large degree that you're so desperate for work that you'll kind of take anything. You need to be able to build yourself in such a way that you can give yourself the luxury of being picky. You know, that's what it comes down to. And you know, and that's the thing, is that I think people are too quick to move. You know, people seriously overestimate what they can do in 1 year and vastly underestimate what they can do in 5. So that's why I plan for the 5-year mark.
I love that. That should be the tagline for the talk. Don't overestimate 1 year. Don't underestimate 5. There was a question actually about those early decisions. Wanting to know, what are some of the early decisions you made that helped your growth, and is your strategic pillars the same now as it was in 2015? So how has that evolution happened over the past 5 years?
Okay, so So the first one is, I think it's like, we started off with one strategic partner. I mean, that's literally how we started. There was one company that we work for, and we only work for that one company. They are funnily called Renderheads UK, right? So we're separate legal entities. We're not related, we're not subsidiaries or anything, but our company was born out of a need to service them. But the key thing that Shane identified, right, was that these people were going to give him a lot of jobs. There was a recurring job. It's like, okay, cool. I can now build a business for myself working for these people. And then all of a sudden what started happening is they started seeing success. It's like, oh, okay, now I can hire somebody. And it kept on going. And now I can hire 3 people. And all of a sudden, because of the portfolio that they built by doing that, now they're saying, okay, now we can start approaching other people. And other people are starting to see what we're doing. I don't think the strategic pillars have varied that much, actually, over the 5 years from its inception. Shane has always been very much employees first. He's very much been about the specialization. He's firmly believed in that since the get-go. And I think the strategic partner thing has something. I don't think he knew how to enunciate it properly when he started, but he kind of had this inkling that that's maybe how you should be doing business. But it's definitely become a core thing. That's probably the new one that's gathered over time, but it was kind of always there in the background. Yeah.
So there are a lot of questions, quite a few questions coming through about how did Renderheads get to this point. I think you've covered a lot of that. The one thing I wanted to know was, do you feel like there were potential opportunities that were missed, but that you were happy to miss those opportunities, even though they could have been very financially viable?
Yes. I mean, look, we have, just because something is financially viable does not mean it will be a commercial success. This is kind of the other thing that I think people miss out. At the board level, we refer to these projects as wombats, wastes of money and time and effort. And it's just like that. Every project that we undertake, we do the wombat test. It's like, is this a wombat? So yes, no, there's been some really interesting projects that either we didn't take, or that were interesting, but then the terms of engagement changed, like the contract changed, or, you know, what is fairly common for us is we'll make a bid to do a project, and then somewhere along the line, and it's normally the end client, they have been lying about how much money they've actually got to do, and they say, well, actually, we said we had a budget of 5 million, but we've only got a budget of 3. You know, you got to sharpen your pencils. And if that happens, we're like, no, we're not going to do this job then. Go find somebody else, because that's bad. That's a bad job, right? Because now all of a sudden, where's that 2 million saving coming from? It's coming from our developers. It's coming from our costs. And like, that's not worthwhile. And there were really interesting projects that we could have done that kind of fit under that. And we're just like, okay, cool. You know, yeah, maybe we missed out on it, but it's not worth risking the livelihood of our employees and our business to take on those jobs, you know. And like I said, we are not hesitant to say no. You know, it's fine. It's like, cool. Yeah.
Be okay to say no, but also not yet if need be.
Yeah. So waste of money, brains, and time. That's what Wombat stands for. Sorry.
Yes, David popped that in there. Okay, yeah. We have 2 minutes before the next session, so I'm going to let you go, Nick, before we start the next section. Remember, you can connect with Nick by using the My Meetings function. His connection is right there, and you can chat to him, get more information about Renderheads, and have a bit more of a one-on-one with Nick. You can tell there's a lot of information there that he couldn't even get to in the time we had. We have 2 more minutes, and then we're going to move on to our next section.
Bye-bye, everybody.